Washington is experiencing an industrial collapse, but no one seems to notice. Toyota, Honda, Subaru, one by one.
Japan's automotive giants are losing $25 billion, but instead of surrendering, they made a smart move. They relocated to Canada.
You're watching the quiet collapse of American manufacturing dominance unfold in real time, and nobody in Washington saw it coming. Tonight, we're breaking down the story mainstream media won't tell you. The story of how Trump's tariff walls didn't bring factories back to America. They pushed them north, way north, to Canada. This isn't theory. This isn't speculation. This is happening right now, and the numbers are absolutely devastating for the United States. Lafayette, Indiana, early 2025. Subaru's president, Jeff Walters, stands before cameras and drops a bombshell that sends shockwaves through the American Rust Belt. We're moving Outback production for Canada back to Japan. Let that sink in. America's heartland, the factory floor that was supposed to be protected by tariffs, just lost one of its most reliable partners. Not because Subaru failed, because Washington made it financially impossible to stay. The math was brutal. A 25% tariff from Washington, another 25% from Ottawa. Suddenly, cross-border manufacturing became a suicide mission. Subaru's imports from the US to Canada collapsed from 26% to just 10% in a single year. 1 year. That's how long it took for protectionism to devastate what decades of partnership had built. But here's what makes this story truly shocking. Subaru wasn't retreating because they were weak. They were repositioning because they were smart. And they weren't alone. While American politicians celebrated tariff announcements, something extraordinary was happening across the Canadian border. Something quiet, something strategic, something that would reshape North American manufacturing forever. Toyota, Honda, Mazda, Mitsubishi. One by one, Japan's automotive titans began redrawing their North American maps, not with press releases, not with grand announcements, just steady, calculated moves northward. The contrast couldn't be starker. Washington offered volatility. Ottawa offered stability. Washington imposed tariffs reaching 49% on Japanese vehicles. Canada maintained its CPTP free trade framework, keeping doors wide open. Industry analysts estimate Japanese automakers are hemorrhaging $25 billion annually because of American tariffs alone. Toyota bears nearly half that burden. That's not a trade dispute. That's an industrial catastrophe. And what did these companies do? They adapted. While Washington built walls, Japan found doors. And those doors were painted red and white with a maple leaf. If you want to understand what's happening right now, you need to go back 4 decades. Because history isn't just rhyming, it's practically Xeroxing itself. 1980s America. President Reagan introduces voluntary export restraints on Japanese vehicles, effectively creating a 60% tariff barrier. The goal? Protect Detroit, force Japan to retreat. Japan's response? Honda opens a massive Ontario plant in 1984. Toyota follows in 1986. Within years, Canada becomes what economists called North America's industrial backdoor. Vehicles built there bypassed U.S. import limits while keeping production on the continent. Reagan's walls didn't stop Japan, they redirected them. Flash forward to 2025. Trump's tariff strategy, same playbook, same intention. And guess what? Same result. Ontario is buzzing again. Cities like Cambridge and Oshawa are experiencing manufacturing deja vu. The same towns that relied on American factories in the past are now powered by Japanese capital and long-term planning. Today, Ontario hosts 7 Japanese automotive plants, 5 producing vehicles, 1 building engines, another focused on trucks. Together, they sustain around 30,000 direct jobs, with thousands more connected indirectly. Japan has invested over $14.6 billion in Canada so far, and that number keeps climbing as more companies shift operations from the volatile American market. Since 1993, Canada has become a net exporter of Japanese-made vehicles, sending over 5.2 million cars to global markets. What began as a contingency plan has evolved into an industrial identity. Here's where this story gets personal for every American watching, because these tariffs don't just hurt foreign companies, they devastate American consumers. When you layer tariffs on both parts and finished products, analysts at Fusion TG calculate that the final cost of an imported car can more than double. That means every American shopping for a vehicle, every family trying to replace an aging car, every worker commuting to their job, they're all paying the price. And it's not just new cars. With tariffs hitting imported auto parts, the cost of maintaining vehicles is skyrocketing. Tires, brake pads, oil filters, Everything costs more because Washington decided proximity mattered more than affordability. Meanwhile, just across the border, Canada is capitalizing on America's self-imposed crisis. Toyota and Honda are expanding hybrid and electric vehicle capacity in Ontario. Smaller brands like Mazda and Mitsubishi are moving logistics and research operations to Toronto. Economists are calling it the quietest, yet most strategic industrial shift in 25 years. Not an exodus. A calculated redirection? The priority has changed. Corporations aren't betting on proximity anymore. They're betting on predictability. And in 2025, predictability has a Canadian address. Behind this industrial migration lies an irony so profound that future economists will study it for decades. Trump's tariff strategy was designed to bring production back to American soil, to revitalize manufacturing, to make America great again. The result, the exact opposite. By applying 25% tariffs on steel, aluminum, vehicles, and auto parts, Washington made domestic manufacturing more expensive than assembling those same cars just across the border in Canada. For multinational automakers, that math leaves absolutely no room for loyalty. Patriotism doesn't pay the bills. Policy stability does. The companies that once relied on American plants adapted with stunning speed. They adopted what insiders call a split supply model. Research and development stays in Japan. Manufacturing shifts to Ontario. Exports move to global markets. The design minimizes tariff exposure while maintaining access to North American consumers. It's brilliant. It's strategic. And it completely undermines everything Washington's tariff policy was supposed to achieve. Canada learned to play the long game. Through the CPTPP framework, Ottawa maintains open trade with Japan, bypassing the barriers now dominating U.S. policy. It's a rare position that allows Canada to stay competitive without violating any North American trade agreements. The same tariffs meant to isolate foreign rivals became leverage for Ottawa. Washington's protectionism became Canada's prosperity. What began as a Japanese adjustment has evolved into something far larger, a global realignment. European automakers are watching, South Korean manufacturers are taking notes. They're all following the same playbook, relocating investments, logistics hubs, and R&D centers to Canada to reach North American markets without getting trapped in Washington's tariff wars. Toronto, long known for finance, is becoming a nerve center for export management and logistics. Companies are using Canada's network of free trade agreements as a strategic advantage, staying close to U.S. consumers while avoiding policy volatility. Meanwhile, Japan's electric vehicle supply chain is merging with Canada's growing battery and mineral ecosystem in Ontario and Quebec. Lithium, nickel, cobalt. Once viewed as mere commodities, they've become the foundation of a clean energy bridge connecting Asia and North America. Analysts call it a structural reset of global trade. Canada, once seen as a secondary player, is becoming a bridge economy. Stable, open, increasingly indispensable to both East and West. Every tariff wall the U.S. builds opens another door for Canada. Each time Washington turns inward, the global supply chain learns to move around it. And that detour consistently ends in Canada. Here's the truth Washington refuses to acknowledge. Companies aren't abandoning the United States out of defiance. They're not leaving because they hate America. They're leaving because unpredictability has become the most expensive cost of all. In business, you can plan for high costs. You can strategize around tough regulations. You can even navigate complex bureaucracy, but you cannot build a long-term manufacturing strategy when the rules change every election cycle, when tariffs appear overnight, when trade policy becomes a political weapon rather than an economic framework. Canada's approach, favoring predictability over dominance, is paying massive dividends. Through steady trade policy and long-term partnerships, Canada is becoming what analysts now call the silent winner of protectionism. The shift led by Japan's automakers is only the beginning. If this trend continues, the next waves could come from electronics, renewable energy, and high-tech manufacturing, industries where consistency and clarity matter far more than slogans. As global investors search for stability in an era of tariffs and trade wars, Canada's open door strategy may prove to be its most valuable export of all. Because this isn't really a story about tariffs. It's not even about cars. It's about the direction the world is choosing to move when faced with two options: volatility or stability, walls or bridges, America's fortress or Canada's open door. Japan has already charted its path. Toyota, Honda, Subaru, they've voted with billions of dollars in investment, and they voted for Canada. The The real question now is who follows next. How many more industries will quietly migrate north before Washington realizes the road it's building might lead to its own economic detour? History suggests the answer is clear. When Reagan tried this in the 1980s, Japan went north. When Trump tries it now, Japan goes north again. Same strategy, same outcome. Einstein defined insanity as doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. By that definition, Washington's tariff strategy isn't just failing, it's insane. Meanwhile, Canada sits quietly, opens its doors, maintains its agreements, and watches as company after company, dollar after dollar, job after job, migrates across the border. Trump wanted to make America great again. Instead, his tariffs are making Canada greater than ever. And the truly devastating part, this was completely predictable. Every bit of it. We've seen this movie before, we know how it ends. Yet here we are watching Act 2 of the exact same play, with Washington somehow expecting a different final scene. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Is America's tariff strategy doomed to fail, or can Washington reverse course before more industries flee north? And if you found this analysis valuable, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're tracking this story as it develops, and trust me, we're just getting started. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.